Greetings, unsettled souls, and welcome to the Correct Views. Sam I.B. DeGangi reporting for the Media Speaks. It is that time. Brought to you in part by the Arcadia Grill, the massive Fukushima update for January 2014. So, friends, I always start the updates for these off the same way. If you do whatever you need to. Behind the scenes queen are fixing wires. If you see this and you share it, you warn other people about this. If you're new to the topic, and for those of you that tune in every month for this, just give me 30 seconds. You know this matters because you were in these people's shoes at one time as well. If you're new to this, this is the single worst disaster in all of recorded history. I'm not trying to be extreme. I'm being real. This is going to affect the lives of every man, woman, and child in the northern hemisphere, probably the whole world, because of the way that food is distributed. When these reactors melted through, even if you don't know anything about nuclear, just know this. They're lying to you when they say that there is no safe level of radiation, particularly the more dangerous kinds. I mean, it's fine to eat a banana, that's a lie. Radiation is something that will enter your body and shall never leave it, and it will do damage to you for all of your life. If you eat it, if you feed it to your family, the same thing will happen to them. That is why I am out here, and I'm asking all of you to share this, comment it, and show other people what you learn, what you know. That's how we, at least, we'll never be able to put the genie back in the bottle, but this is how we can at least ascertain how bad it's getting, what we can do to prevent it from getting worse, what we can do in terms of limiting our exposure by knowing when the fallout is the worst, having accurate readings on these kinds of things. All of that's being denied to us. Our government's not even testing the fish. So having said all of that, friends, I'm getting into my massive Fukushima update. TheDailySheeple.com, this is the saddest story ever. 71 U.S. sailors who responded to Fukushima have cancer, radiation sickness. And Christelle wants to shoot me sometimes because I tell her, you know, it doesn't really matter whether someone likes me or not. My batting average is high. Not because I'm brilliant, just because I read a lot. But my batting average is very high. And I can connect dots relatively well, figuratively speaking. I wish I'd been wrong on this more than anything. I remember telling her that the sailors that were on board the Ronald Reagan, when they went to assist our ally, Japan, to some degree, I mean, no matter how libertarian you are, when an ally is in trouble, when a friend is in trouble, you help them. So, I mean, you can't say they had no business being there. They were there to help. What they got was lied to from TEPCO and lied to from Japan and lied to from their own government, the United States. I did this story last night, but Daily Motion let me out. It's hard to even read this story. It's, you know, you just want to cry and throw something. It's just awful. EcoWatch is reporting that 71 U.S. Navy sailors, many only in their 20s, who responded to the Fukushima earthquake and destruction at TEPCO Daiichi's power plant, have come down with radiation poisoning and cancers after water from the wrecked plant contaminated the USS Ronald Reagan's supply during disaster efforts. Let's pause. Why does this matter to you? Poisoning, radiation poisoning, and cancers after water from the wrecked plant Oh, you mean the water that the fish swim through, that Japan sends to your grocery store? You mean those waters? Don't eat seafood. Take fish oil. The water contaminated the ship's supply, which led to crew members drinking, washing their bodies, and brushing their teeth with contaminated water. Paul Garner, an attorney representing 51 sailors, said that at least half of the 70-plus sailors have come down with some form of cancer. We're seeing leukemia, testicular cancer, and unremitting gynecological bleeding requiring transfusions and other intervention, Garner told the U.S. Post. Now, if you think this can only happen if you're sitting on a boat, but that the water that fish are in isn't going to affect you any, then you're missing the thinking part of your brain. This is really that bad. Although the Reagan was equipped with a multi-million-dollar radiation detection system, it was reportedly not activated in time. Radiation levels aboard the ship were measured at 300 times over the prescribed safety limit. Let's pause again. Now, I don't want to say Obama did it, like he was on the phone making sure this happened. But remember, the buck stops here. Getting over a cold, sorry. Remember, the buck stops here. Well, let me bounce this off you real quick. Is the Obama administration, one, so unbelievably that they somehow would not already have the radiation detection system on when you're going into an area that may be in danger of a nuclear catastrophe? And don't tell me they didn't know. I'm not an idiot. I watched it as it happened, as did Giselle and the correct views first correspondent. We watched this unfold, and they were saying there could be a danger of a nuclear meltdown. Therefore, they knew before it happened that it was a possibility. But he didn't have the radiation detection system on. Two, maybe you can't run it all the time. Well, that's great. Nobody that hates the United States could ever use that bit of information against them. Or three, there's a lot of money to be made in nuclear. The weapons are tied to the energy, by the way. The same technology is used and shared to make better bombs, yes, even today. There's a lot of money to be made in suppressing other forms of energy and making things like coal into an enemy when it's not the best thing for your lungs, but it's better than this. There's money to be made here. Friends, you can call me a tinfoil hat wearer all you want to, but those are the only three options we have here. If there's a fourth one, I'm all ears. EcoWatch continued. Meanwhile, sailors like Lindsay Cooper have contrasted their initial and subsequent feelings upon seeing and tasting metallic radioactive snow caused by freezing Pacific air that mixed with radioactive debris. At the time, we joked about it. Hey, it's radioactive snow, Cooper said. Now, my thyroid is so out of whack that I can lose 60 to 70 pounds in 1 month and then gain it back in the next. My menstrual cycle lasts for 6 months at a time. That's periods for you Usher fans. And I cannot get pregnant. It's ruined me. Ruined me. That's what nuclear does. Meanwhile, the Daiichi plant continues to leak irradiated groundwater into the Pacific Ocean at a rate of some 400 tons a day. TEPCO, and by extension the Japanese government, which owns nearly 3/4 of its assets, asserts that the contaminated water remains in an area 0.3 square kilometers within the bay fronting the atomic station, so it isn't anything for the rest of the world to worry about. This bonehead is trying to convince you that the contaminated water stays right at that 0.3 square kilometers. And not only does that water never move into further out into the ocean, no. But the fish that swim through that, they're magically unaffected. Nothing happens to them. They're safe to eat. Or maybe there's no fish in that point. That's what it is. There must be no fish in the 0.3 square kilometer area that the radiation has agreed to stay in, and the fish agreed to stay out. That's basically what they're trying to tell you. Who believes that? Nobody. Crickets. Nobody at all. National News, Jonathan Benson, Fukushima continues to contaminate the environment. Cleanup expected to take decades. Cleanup efforts at the stricken Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power facility were taken up a notch recently as crews began hauling these spent fuel rods out of the infamous reactor 4, which for those of you that don't know, if it falls over, will be the end of life on the northern hemisphere, which sustained terminal damage when the tsunami struck it back in 2011. But this is just the beginning of a massive remediation effort at the site, which experts say could take many decades to complete due to the catastrophic destruction caused by the massive earthquake and storm surge. After many months of planning, workers have begun carefully removing each of the 1,533 fuel assemblies still sitting in the damaged cooling pool at Reactor 4 nearly 3 years after the disaster. Each of the assemblies measures roughly 4 meters in length, according to reports, and individually contain as many as 80 separate fuel rods, which means that there could be as many as 122,000 spent fuel rods in total that need to be evacuated from the reactor. Keep in mind there's debris in it that they can't get near, and if any of those any two out of the 122,000 were to touch, you've released an amount of radiation that is beyond your scope of reason unless you're a physicist. By the way, if you want to question anything I'm saying, feel free to contact Arnie Gunderson, Helen Collercott, Lauren Moe, Chris Busby. I get much of my information from them. I don't know them, I mean, I read their stuff, Facebook. According to the UK's Guardian, a team of 36 workers is currently handling the project, which will involve work taking place at a reactor continually around the clock in 6 separate shifts. If all goes according to plan, every single spent fuel rod from Reactor 4 will be gone from the pool by the end of 2014, say authorities, who at the same time acknowledge that snags are likely to turn up along the way. Yes, like another earthquake. Since Japan was known to have been, at least in part, created from an earthquake happening, seems like a remarkable place to build a nuclear reactor. Build it in a place that could very well easily get rid of your island in the same way. These are just the rods in Unit 4, it says. There are at least 3 other reactors in the facility with their own spent fuel rods that will eventually need to be addressed as well. And then there is the issue of the melted reactor cores, which still have to be dug out from inside the damaged reactors. The removal of the spent fuel rods is just the tip of the iceberg. In other words, as there is still plenty of work that needs to be done elsewhere in the facility. To fully decommission Fukushima Daiichi will take 40 years, and no one expects cakewalk. They have not gone 40 years during any time period. Now, I've researched this. Source me. Look up earthquake data. Japan has not gone 40 years without an earthquake with the ability to knock that unit over. Ever. In any 40-year block that I've been able to find in my studies, they've never gone that far. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to get a 9 again, but it's not going to take a 9 to knock over 4. Unit 4. They've never addressed this. They've never talked about this. But one more time, and you're only going to hear it here. Japan has not gone 40 years without an earthquake that will significantly damage and possibly knock over Unit 4. But they're saying it's going to take 40 years to do it. They're implying that they can do this, and suddenly there's not going to be an earthquake in this 40-year span, because after the radiation agreed not to move, they reached another agreement, and the Earth has promised not to have an earthquake in the next 40 years. TEPCO needs to bring in the outside help to remediate it. Yeah, well, again, the best analogy I've heard here is Fukushima is trying to decommission this themselves without having to bring in outside help, largely due to pride, a secondary economy, and to save face as a whole, as a unit. They're doing this. Here's the analogy I'm going to give you. I've been playing keyboards since I was 11 years old. I've been taking lessons. I've gone to college for it. I can play the keyboard. TEPCO has run a nuclear power plant. That's what they do. They run that nuclear power plant. When I break my keyboard, I do not attempt to fix it myself, just because I have a lot of experience playing it. TEPCO has tried to fix their own keyboard. All right, there's your analogy. That's what the correct views does. It gives you really complicated stuff, and it chops it down where the average person can understand it. Infowars.com, Paul Joseph Watson. Well, at least I hope that's mine. A former MSNBC host told not to warn the public about Fukushima. Oh, but Sam, if this was really such a big deal, we'd just tune in and this would be on CNN and ABC, right? Incoming. Former MSNBC host Cenk Uygur, Cenkuygur, you try it, was told not to warn the public about the danger posed by the meltdown at the Fukushima nuclear power plant during his time as host at the cable network. It was on MSNBC at the time. He said when it happened, "Don't trust what the Japanese government is saying. They'll say just what the electric power company is saying. Go, 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 get out of there. Get as far away from that plant as you can. It's literally a core meltdown." And they always don't want people to panic. So they were always like, "Oh, it's going to be okay." And I'm telling them, "Man, you're crazy. Don't be anywhere near that reactor." And I remember at the time, of course, not at the Young Turks, but on cable news, people were like, "Hey, Cenk, I don't know what you want to say, but because the official government position is that it's safe." Oh, and this is the official position, right? Now go explain that to the people who served on the USS Ronald Reagan, and we just covered those people. And that sounded choppy. It's the way it's worded. It's a quote. Uygur previously revealed how MSNBC President Phil Griffin ordered him to tone down his show because people in Washington were concerned about Uygur being too combative towards those in power. Despite the fact that his show had good ratings, he walked away from the network to create his own broadcast. And they told him, don't zone out on me here. They told him to lie. And that affects you because you went to the store and bought California raisins and fed them to your kids, didn't you? California raisins were the most deadly things you could possibly eat at that time. It happened with mushrooms. It's happened with our milk because they told you it was safe. You just heard from someone that worked at MSNBC, whose name looks like an eye turn. You just heard what he said. This isn't conspiracies, people. This is fact. His reference to the USS Ronald Reagan concerns the leukemia, brain cancers that they've suffered, thyroid cancer, and that was at 300 times the safe level. Remember that. There's been instances where it's been 500 times the safe level on our own beaches. 300 times the safe level has given them thyroid cancer, leukemia, and brain tumors in less than 3 years. You won't find that said anywhere else on the correct views either. Those are two dots that nobody's connected to just now. That gives you some kind of a ballpark. Again, don't skip over it. They got cancers in less than 3 years from being around a radiation level that was 300 times the safe level. What about what we've seen recently where it's 500 times? Now, I know there's a difference between uranium and thorium, for instance. But as a ballpark, it gives you more to work with than what the government's giving you. The sailors are suing the TEPCO Electric Power Company, and I'm glad they are. I'm not going to cover the end of this because it deals with the story that we already did. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. The Correct Views is brought to you by the Arcadia Grill. The Arcadia Grill, it makes some of the best food you'll ever eat. For Christmas, I had their ravioli. I loved it. I inhaled it. I didn't even eat it. It was so great. Go to the Arcadia Grill. Check out their bar. You name it, they've got it. They can make it. They make the best drinks in town. Let them know that you heard about it from Sam. And again, if you're in Canton, Ohio, make sure you're at the Arcadia Grill. Also, Media Speaks is supported by you going to the Bud K ad. Go to mediaspeaks.com, click on Bud K, and do it, please, in that order. Because when you do, it helps us. They know that, you know, our listenership is supporting them, and it helps us grow. They've got the LifeStraw personal water filter for $19.99. That's very important. You can drink almost any kind of water safely. It makes any water, you know, almost any water drinkable. $19.99. I mean, anything can happen. You could just anything. It's great to have things like that around. If you know someone that likes really odd gifts, the Black Legion Finger Kubaton Skull, $5.99. Guys, a lot of this stuff you just gotta look at. Go to the mediaspeaks.com. Please click on Bud K. A few more stories to get to on my massive Fukushima update. There will be a part 2 of this. I will be doing it again tomorrow. Hoping to get a very special guest. I can't promise anything, but if it happens, it's going to be wonderful. Skynews.com.au. Japan's population logs a record drop. Well, it's here. Let's put Sam on trial. I'm going to put myself on trial here. And I got Mr. Japanese government over here. I'm gonna interview Mr. Japanese government real quick. All right, here we go. Oh, I hate when sites do this. Do you ever notice when you try to click on anything, it's become trendy to give you these little scrolling pop-up ads? All right. Pull my guest over and get my guest in camera. All right. Sit here. Thank you. All right. Now, what is it that you say? Oh, I was just saying that it's safe over here in Fukushima. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. I say it's dangerous. Let's see who's telling the truth. Had to shake on it. Japan's population fell by a record 244,000 in 2013, according to Health Ministry estimates released on Wednesday, highlighting concerns over an ever-dwindling workforce supporting a growing number of pensioners. An estimated, I'm not going to give you all the billion, there you go. And why not? An estimated 1,031,000 babies were born in 2013, down 6,000 from the year earlier. About 1,275,000 people died, up from 19,000 the previous year, the highest annual rise since World War II. Get off my show, idiot! As a result, the natural population decline came to a record 244,000, the ministry said, beating the previous fail by 212,000 in 2012. It's making people sick, and they're hiding it anywhere, every way they can. Now, was all of it Fukushima? No, I guarantee that the stress and shock of the tidal wave and losing everything you owned and the heartbreak and sorrow played a part in it, and I'm not going to belittle that. But I'm saying that, oh, Christelle thinks something happened. No, I had to throw my guest off the show. You'll see later. That's great. So when you hear these sorts of things, it just makes your blood boil. Because, yeah, some of them might have died of sorrow or heartbreak or whatever. But no. They did not all die from it. You cannot have a nuclear meltdown that is worse than Chernobyl, and we've already established in what ways it is, and have nothing happen to it. What you're going to have in Japan is what you see in Belarus, and look that up, but you don't want to look it up while you're eating. It's the saddest. Limbs twisted. It's very, very bad. TheGuardian.com, 2 more stories. Fukushima ghost town struggled to recover amid high radiation levels. Nearly 3 years after a major earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear radiation leak, writes Simon Tisdall, Devastated coastal and inland areas of Japan's Fukushima prefecture, 175 miles northeast of Tokyo, Nemi has become a silent ghost town of absent lives. Naomi's 21,000 residents remain evacuated because of continuing high radiation levels, the product of the March 2011 disaster. I'm sure this had a part in the number of people that died. Sorrow will kill you, and I know this. But I wanted to stray over here to one of the quotes that stood out with me. Nobody has died directly as a result of the nuclear disaster, but a close eye is being kept on the incidence of thyroid cancer in children following the experience of Chernobyl. Now, there's a reason I did the last three stories in the order that I did. The last one, I talked to you and I proved to you how the population is going down in Japan because of bad luck, because of Fukushima. Let's be real. I read you this that said nobody died. Well, didn't the last story say that, death rates have gone up, birth rates have gone down? Well, how about we end with one that also proves it, just to make the sandwich complete. This is the Vernon radiation safety. Death rate in the U.S. rises after Fukushima. Perhaps 20,000 die. Death rate goes up, means people died. It says, I've been using Google for my reading today. I looked at Bing and found this. This article's a bit dated, but it proves the point. The 2010-2011 change in reported U.S. deaths in 14 weeks after fallout from the Fukushima nuclear meltdown arrived in this country and is now estimated to be 21,851 deaths, greater than expected, up from 13,983 originally estimated. The new figures were based on deaths of the entire years 2010-2011, which recently became available. Earlier death estimates were based on data and only partly to 2001. Now, other findings include, there's 4 of these, a similar pattern of U.S. deaths in the 4 months after Chernobyl. Estimated excess over 20,000, final excess 16,573. 2, all age groups, 1 through 24, 25 through 44, 45 through 64, and 65 plus, had an excess number of deaths in the spring of 2011 versus 2010. 3, the highest percentage excess death was for infants under the age of 1, who are most susceptible to radiation exposure. And 4, a very large 2010-2011 increase in pneumonia influenza deaths occurred after Fukushima. And there's a whole bunch of numbers from the CDC that your eyes are going to gloss over. If I read them, go look it up if you think I'm lying to you. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. Thank you so much for doing so. This isn't happy, fun news to give. I try to be silly. I try to be jovial to some degree. Point is, this matters. And it matters that you share it. It matters that you watch it. It matters that you know and learn from it. As I always say, what can you do? I'm going to do a whole show on why, but real quick, you want to take calcium, look up Chris Busby, calcium, Fukushima. You want to hit about 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. You may want to look into bentonite clay, selenium, fish oil, because you got to quit eating fish. I'll do a whole report on why. Tomorrow, I am doing part 2 of my massive Fukushima update. We're going to do more of this. Thank you for trusting me with this important information, and I promise I will continue giving it to you. Go to themediaspeaks.com, look at the work of Kyle, Court, D-Lake, and myself. I want to thank Mikhail Phelan for all of his help and inspiration. And I want to ask everyone, if at all possible, please donate to the show, thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. Good night, friends. God bless.